the dare that changed everything, Connor stood at the edge of the ancient alien chamber. His flashlight shaking in his hand, the air inside the ruins was cold and still. Like it had not moved in 1,000 years, dust floated in the beam of light. Dancing slowly like ghostly snow, he looked back at his alien classmate, Lyra, who was smiling with excitement. "Go on, human," she said playfully. "Put it on, I dare you." In the center of the chamber stood a tall stand, and on it a strange suit of armor rested. It looked like it was made from silver bone and glowing stone. The helmet had sharp angles and markings that looked like fire and wings. Lyra's other alien friends giggled from the shadows, whispering in their own language to them. It was just a silly dare get the human to wear the sacred armor of the ancients. Connor hesitated. "Is this allowed?" he asked, trying to laugh. "It's been here for centuries." Lyra shrugged. "No one wears it anymore, and it doesn't even work." She pointed at the chest plate. "Besides, it's just a relic, like a museum piece." Connor took a deep breath, stepped forward, and reached out. As soon as his fingers touched the cold surface of the armor, a faint hum began. The others stopped laughing. A pulse of light ran through the room, and the floor beneath them shook lightly. Lyra's smile vanished, replaced by confusion and fear. The armor opened on its own, slow and smooth, like it had been waiting. Connor was frozen in place, but something pulled him forward. The chest plate wrapped around him, followed by the arms and legs. It wasn't heavy, it felt like it floated on his skin. Alive, then, the helmet dropped down with a hiss, locking into place. Suddenly, everything went quiet. Too quiet. The alien lights on the walls turned orange, then deep red, and then came the voice. It was deep, like thunder, but calm and ancient. It spoke in a language Connor didn't understand. Lyra gasped, stepping back, her hands shaking. It's the old tongue," she whispered. "It's speaking to him." Connor's body stiffened as the armor glowed brighter. Holographic images rose from the walls, figures in armor like his, standing tall, holding weapons of fire and light. Each one stared at him, their eyes glowing blue. The voice continued, and slowly the images began to bow before him. Lyra dropped to her knees, stunned. "This is not a joke," she said, barely able to speak. "You've awakened the spirits." Connor tried to move, but the armor wouldn't let him. Instead, it walked him forward, closer to a glowing circle on the floor. As he stepped inside it, the entire chamber lit up with ancient symbols. One by one, they floated into the air, spinning around him like fireflies. The voice grew louder, and suddenly, Connor could understand. We waited for the one who carries the fire. It said, "The echo of the first guardian has returned." Echo? Connor asked aloud, his voice muffled by the helmet. Lyra stood up slowly, her eyes wide. "They think you're the guardian reborn." Connor shook his head. "I'm just a kid from Earth." But the spirits didn't care. They began to chant, their energy growing stronger with every second. A beam of light shot up through the ceiling and into the sky above. On the surface, elders in the alien city saw the beam and gasped. Some cried. Others fell to their knees inside the ruins. The armor finally let Connor move again. He pulled off the helmet and took a deep breath, sweat running down his face. "What just happened?" he asked, looking at Lyra. She didn't answer. She only stared at him like he wasn't the same boy who walked into the ruins. Outside, strange ships had already begun to move in the sky. Someone else had seen the beam too, far away in a dark palace across the desert. A shadowy figure opened his eyes and smiled. "The Guardian has awakened," he said, rising from his throne. "Now the hunt begins." Back in the chamber, Connor turned to Lyra. "I didn't mean to do this," he said. "I know," she replied softly, "but the armor chose you." Connor looked down at the glowing suit wrapped around him. It was no longer a game. It was destiny. The armor that wouldn't come off Connor sat on the stone floor. Breathing hard, the armor still glowed faintly around his body, warm and strange. He pulled at the shoulder plates, then at the chest, but it wouldn't move. No clips. No buttons. Nothing, he muttered, trying not to panic. It's stuck. Lyra walked around him slowly, her eyes still wide. This armor was never meant for humans, she said, her voice shaking. It was meant for one of us, a Thyrixan warrior, chosen by the ancestors. Well, it didn't seem to care, Connor replied, looking at the glowing lines across his arm. I just touched it, and now it's like I'm wearing a living thing. Suddenly, the armor pulsed, sending a soft blue wave across the room. Symbols on the walls lit up again, and a voice whispered inside Connor's head. It spoke in the old tongue first, then slowly shifted into English. You are now bound by oath and blood, it said, until your final fire burns out. Connor froze. What does that mean? He asked, looking at Lyra, but she was already pulling out a small device and calling someone. We need help, she said quickly. Call Elder Euron, tell him. The Guardian has returned. An hour later, soldiers and elders surrounded the ruined chamber. Some stared at Connor with fear, others with disbelief. Elder Euron stepped forward tall, with silver skin and long black robes. His voice was deep, but calm. Remove the armor, child, he said. It does not belong to you. I can't. Connor answered, standing up. It's locked. It won't let go. Euron narrowed his eyes, stepping closer. He touched the armor gently, then quickly pulled back as a spark zapped his fingers. The bond is real, he muttered. This is not a trick. A few of the soldiers raised their weapons, but Euron lifted his hand to stop them. No harm will come to him, he said firmly. He is not wearing the armor. The armor is wearing him. Connor looked around, feeling the tension in the air. Can someone just tell me what's happening? He asked. Lyra stepped beside him, whispering, There is a story among my people. A prophecy. It says that one day, when the stars begin to dim and the sky burns red, the armor will awaken. It will choose a new guardian, not from our kind, but from the race of flame blood and iron will. She looked at him. That's you, Connor. He laughed nervously. I'm not a hero. I barely passed history class. But the armor pulsed again, this time sending an image into his mind. A battlefield covered in ash, warriors falling under a black sky. A shadow with red eyes standing in the distance, waiting, watching, smiling. Connor gasped. Grabbing his head, I saw something. A war, he whispered. Lyra nodded. The armor is showing you what it remembers. The elders gathered in a circle and began to speak in their language. Some wanted to remove the armor forcefully. Others warned that touching a chosen one would bring disaster. Euron finally spoke, silencing the group. There is no turning back. The armor has awakened after 1,000 years, and if the visions are true, the shadow is already moving again. Suddenly, a low sound filled the room like a far-off thunder. A nearby screen flickered on, showing the sky above the capital city. Black clouds formed in a perfect circle, and lightning danced across the sky. A voice echoed through the signal, crackling and harsh. I see you, Guardian, it said. The stars will fall, and I will rise. The screen went black, and silence fell. Connor looked at Lyra, his voice small. Who was that? She didn't answer right away. Then she whispered, That was Relic, the warlord of the Hollow Flame. Euron turned to Connor, his eyes serious. He was once one of us, before he was consumed by the darkness. If he knows the armor has returned, he will come for it. And for you, Connor clenched his fists, feeling the armor respond with a glow of white light. So what do I do? He asked. Lyra stepped forward, placing her hand gently on his armored shoulder. You train, she said softly. You learn everything the armor can teach. You, because soon You'll have to fight. Voices from the past nights on Therixa were quiet. But Connor couldn't sleep, not with the armor still locked around his body. Pulsing gently in the dark, he lay on a mat inside the Elder Temple, staring up at the curved stone ceiling every time he closed his eyes. He saw flashes images not from his own life, burning skies, screaming warriors, blades made of pure energy clashing in the dust. He wasn't dreaming. The armor was showing him memories that weren't his. The voice came again, just like before, soft and ancient. You are not the first, it said, but you may be the last. Connor sat up, startled. He looked around, but no one was there. Only the flickering light of a blue lantern near the entrance. Who are you? Connor whispered. A swirl of golden particles lifted from the chest of the armor, forming a shape in front of him. It was a figure, tall and proud, wearing armor just like his, but older, cracked, and worn by war. My name is lost to time. The figure said, but once I was called the first guardian. Connor stood slowly, watching the glowing figure. You're part of the armor. The ghostly warrior nodded. We all are. Those who wore it before you. Those who fell in battle and gave their soul to protect the stars. Connor's heart beat faster. He realized the armor wasn't just a weapon, was a tomb, a collection of memories, a living story written in spirit and steel. How many? He asked. Hundreds, the voice said, but only a few ever heard our call. Only a true guardian can carry our voices. The figure stepped closer and raised its hand. Suddenly, the room around Connor changed. He was no longer inside the temple. Now he stood on a cliff above a burning battlefield. Explosions rocked the land below. Alien creatures screamed in rage, and giant machines marched through smoke and fire. Connor stumbled back, shocked. What is this? A memory, the Guardian said. My final battle. He watched as the Guardian leaped into the air, cutting through shadows with glowing blades. Each step was fast, each strike perfect, but even the greatest warrior cannot fight forever. In the end, the Guardian fell, his body broken, his armor shattered, but instead of dying, his spirit entered the core of the armor. To guide the next, Connor turned away, tears in his eyes. This is too much, he whispered. I didn't ask for this. The Guardian's voice softened. No guardian ever does, he said. But when the stars are threatened, the armor chooses, and now you must prepare. The vision faded, and Connor found himself back in the temple. The ghost was gone, but a warmth remained in his chest. The armor had accepted him fully. The next morning, Lyra entered the temple carrying a small device. She paused when she saw Connor awake, sweat on his face. You saw them, didn't you? She asked. Connor nodded. They showed me everything, and it felt real, like I was there. Lyra sat beside him, her voice quiet. My mother once told me the armor is like a mirror. It doesn't just protect, it remembers. Each guardian leaves behind pieces of their soul, and now they live inside you. Connor looked at his hands, glowing softly with thin blue lines. I felt their pain, their strength, even their fear. Lyra gave a small nod. And now their mission becomes yours. But before they could speak more, a loud boom echoed across the city. A messenger ran into the temple, breathless and afraid. He's here, the boy cried. Relic has entered orbit, and he's sent a message. A hologram flickered to life in the center of the room, showing Relic's face, cold, sharp, and glowing with dark energy. Guardian, he said with a mocking smile. You wear the skin of heroes, but your bones are still weak. I give you 1 day to surrender the armor, or I will tear it from your body. Then the image vanished, replaced by a growing sense of dread. Connor stood up slowly, his voice firm. Let him come, he said. I won't run. Lyra looked at him with pride and worry. Then we start your training now, she said, because he won't wait long outside. Dark clouds were already gathering. The past had spoken. Now the future would decide what kind of guardian Connor would become. The sky turned red as Relic's ship broke through the clouds. It wasn't a ship, was a fortress in the sky, black and wide like a shadow spreading across the stars. From the ground, people in the Therixan city stared in silence. Children were pulled indoors. Guards took positions, and priests lit protective fires. Everyone knew what was coming. Relic. The warlord of the Hollow Flame had returned. Connor stood on the temple steps, watching the dark shape descend. The armor on his body tightened slightly, as if warning him. Beside him, Lyra held her staff. Her face calm, but her hands shaking. "He came faster than we thought," she said. "He's not here to talk," Connor replied. "He's here to take what he thinks belongs to him." Moments later, a smaller ship dropped from the mothership and landed just outside the sacred ruins. Dust flew into the air, and black-armored soldiers marched out. Their armor looked diseased dark metal with glowing red cracks like lava. Then Relic stepped out, tall and powerful, with horns curved back over his head. His armor pulsed with dark energy and his eyes burned orange. "Connor," Relic said loudly. "Or should I say, pretender, you wear the shell of greatness, but you are no guardian." Connor stepped forward, the ancient armor glowing with silver-blue light. "I didn't ask for this," he said. "But the armor chose me, not you." Relic laughed. The sound sharp, like broken glass. "It chose wrong. That armor belonged to my ancestors, and I will rip it from your bones." He raised his arm, and in an instant, a flaming blade formed in his hand. Connor's armor reacted fast, building a light shield over his forearm. The two powers, light and flame, crashed together with a roar. Relic moved like a beast, fast and heavy. Swinging his blade with raw power, Connor blocked the strikes, each one pushing him back step by step. The armor guided his body, but Relic's strength was real, his rage like fire. The city shook with every clash, and watchers held their breath. Lyra tried to help, spinning her staff and sending energy blasts at the enemy soldiers. But they were strong too, trained in the dark arts of corrupted energy. Still, she fought on, protecting the civilians while Connor battled Relic alone. Connor leaped into the air, swinging a sword of light formed from his own armor. Relic blocked it and twisted, slamming Connor into the temple wall. "You're not worthy," Relic hissed. "You're a child playing in a warrior's skin." But the armor flared with white light, and the spirits inside spoke together. "The guardian stands, so the flame must fall." Connor's body moved again, faster this time. He dodged Relic's blade and struck back with a powerful punch that cracked the dark armor. Relic stumbled, shocked. The crowd watching gasped, seeing for the first time that Connor might win. Then Relic screamed and stabbed his sword into the ground. A wave of fire shot out in all directions, knocking Connor back and setting nearby trees ablaze. Lyra ran to Connor's side, helping him up. "We can't beat him like this," she whispered. "He's feeding on some dark power." Connor looked up at the warlord, standing tall in the fire. He took a deep breath, then turned to Lyra. "There's another way," he said. "The armor showed me something, an old move, a secret path." Lyra nodded. "Then use it now." Connor closed his eyes, and the armor glowed brighter than ever. Symbols floated around him, and the spirits of past guardians formed a ring of light. They whispered together, guiding his hands, his breath, his purpose. He stood up slowly, light swirling around him. Relic raised his sword again, but this time Connor didn't move. Instead, he stepped forward, one step at a time. The light grew stronger, and when Relic charged again, Connor raised his arm. With a flash, the energy blast struck Relic's chest and sent him flying back. His armor cracked, and his sword broke into glowing ash. The sky above shook, and the mothership began to retreat. Relic growled, standing up slowly. blood on his lip. "This isn't over, Guardian," he spat. "You delay the end." But the end is still coming, with a wave of his hand. His soldiers vanished into smoke, and his ship pulled him away. Connor dropped to his knees. Exhausted, Lyra knelt beside him, smiling with tears in her eyes. "You won," she said. "No?" Connor whispered, "I survived, winning." That comes later, and far above, hidden in the stars, something darker was already watching. The true enemy had yet to arrive. The battle with Relic had ended, but the war was far from over. Connor's body ached. His arms bruised beneath the armor. Even though the spirits had helped him win, he knew it had been too close. Too fast, too lucky. He wasn't ready. He wasn't ready not. Truly, and the armor knew it too. In the morning, Elder Euron stood before the council and spoke with fire in his voice. "The Guardian has awakened." "Yes, but he is not yet prepared. We must open the gates of Orovin," he said. "The other?" Elders gasped in shock. Some even shouted in protest. "Those halls have been sealed for 1,000 years." One elder said, "That place is cursed." "No," Euron replied. "That place is where guardians are made." Lyra walked beside Connor as they followed Euron through the mountain paths. The sun shone weakly through a thin veil of clouds. Casting pale light on the stone trail, Connor looked at her. Nervous. "What's in Orovin?" he asked. Lyra's voice was quiet. "The Hall of Echoes. Where past guardians trained, and where many fell." They reached a hidden doorway carved into the cliffside. It's covered in moss and ancient symbols. Euron raised his hand, and the stone slid open with a grinding sound. A cold wind rushed out, smelling of dust, old steel, and forgotten fire. They stepped inside, torches lighting automatically as the armor responded to the sacred place. The walls shimmered with carvings of battles, victories, and terrible sacrifices. Statues lined the halls, each one wearing armor like Connor's, but cracked or faded with time. "This is where your training begins," Euron said, "and where you'll hear the voices clearer, inside a wide chamber." The floor was covered with glowing circles and ancient runes. Connor stepped into the center, and the room lit up. Suddenly, his armor locked his legs in place and his mind was pulled into the past. He found himself on a battlefield, but no one else moved. Everything was frozen like time had paused just for him. Then, the first guardian appeared again, standing beside him. "This is the memory plane," he said, "where we will teach you without harming your body over the next few hours or." What felt like days, Connor trained under dozens of spirit warriors. He learned how to move with the armor instead of fighting it. He learned how to turn his fear into focus. The armor taught him how to form different weapons from its core swords, shields, spears, even energy wings. Each training memory tested a part of him: strength, speed, patience, control. But it was the final test that nearly broke him. A spirit warrior appeared, wearing Relic's dark armor. It attacked with fury, shouting insults, slashing with fire. Connor struggled to keep up, and the voice inside the armor whispered, "If you fail here, you will die out there." Connor dug deep, remembered the people watching, the innocent lives, Lyra's courage. He focused on the armor, responded. It flared with brilliant light, and he disarmed the attacker with one clean strike. The memory faded, and Connor dropped to the floor in the training hall. Gasping, Euron stood over him, nodding slowly. "You are learning," he said, "and the armor is learning you." Later, Lyra entered the chamber, a proud smile on her face. She handed Connor a crystal disc. "This holds the recorded memories of the last 3 guardians. Study them," she said. "Learn their choices, the good and the terrible. You don't need to become them, but you must understand them together." They watched the memories one guardian who saved a planet by sacrificing his own army. Another who chose love over war, and suffered for it, and won. Who walked into darkness alone, never returning. Connor sat quietly after the visions ended. So many decisions. And so much pain. Lyra placed her hand on his shoulder. That's what makes a guardian. She said, not power, but heart. Just then, a loud horn echoed through the mountain. A scout ran into the chamber, eyes wide with panic. They found something, he said, breathlessly, near the ruins. Another energy spike. Euron's face darkened. The spirits feared this, he said. Relic has touched something forbidden. He's awakening his own armor. Connor stood, the training fresh in his body. The voices calm in his mind. Then, "We don't have time," he said. "I'm ready." Euron looked at him carefully, then nodded. "Go, Guardian. And may the spirits walk with you." Connor turned to Lyra, who gripped her staff tightly. "We go together," she said. Shieldmate and Guardian, they walked out of the chamber side by side. The wind rising as if the mountain itself approved. Outside, the stars were beginning to fade. And something old was waking in the dark, but Connor was no longer just a boy in armor. He was a guardian in training, soon to become a guardian in truth. The wind howled through the highlands as Connor and Lyra reached the Temple of Trials. It stood at the peak of Mount Velanon Old. It's a quiet place where even birds refused to sing. Black stone pillars surrounded the summit. Cracked by time, but still humming with old power, this was the place where the Spirit Council lived, not in body but in energy. Guardians called it the final gate, because after it, there was no turning back. Euron stood, waiting at the gate, robes fluttering in the wind. He looked at Connor with deep eyes, full of worry and hope. Inside, he said, "The armor will not protect you. Only your soul will decide what happens." Next, Connor took a deep breath, Lyra squeezing his hand before stepping back. He walked through the black arch alone. The air grew colder, and the world faded into silence. Suddenly, he stood in a place of glowing mist, no ground. No sky, just endless white light and a faint sound of whispering voices. Then they appeared. Figures formed from stars and dust tall, faceless, wearing ancient armor, the Spirit Council. One stepped forward and raised its hand. "You stand before those who shaped the past," it said. "To become the Guardian, you must pass 3 trials: courage, truth, and sacrifice." Connor nodded slowly. "I'm ready," he said, though his voice trembled. The first trial came fast. He found himself back in the ruins where he first wore the armor. But this time, no one dared him. Instead, he watched as a version of himself refused to touch the armor, ran away, laughing, never looking back. And then he saw what followed. Relic, rising without resistance. The cities burning, Lyra crying beside a ruined home. Courage, a spirit whispered. To act. When fear says no, Connor stepped forward, touching the false image. And it shattered. "I chose the armor," he said, "even if I was afraid." Light flared on. The first trial was passed. The second trial was harder. He stood before a mirror of light and in it saw every doubt he'd ever had. Voices from school mocking him, his own parents saying, "Why can't you be stronger?" Himself crying at night, thinking he'd never be good enough. "Truth," the Spirit said, "not what others see, but what you believe." Connor stared into the mirror and spoke aloud. "I'm not perfect. I make mistakes, but I try. I care. I fight for what matters." The mirror cracked, then glowed. Truth accepted. But the final trial was the worst. He was placed in the middle of a battlefield. On one side stood Lyra, trapped in a cage of fire. On the other, group of crying Therics and children surrounded by beasts. The voice of the spirits rang in his head. "You may save one," they said. "But only one. Choose, or all will fall." Connor dropped to his knees, pain filling his chest. "This isn't fair," he shouted. I can't pick between her and them. No guardian ever chooses easily, the spirits replied. He looked at LaRue, her eyes locked on his, silent, understanding. Then he stood and ran toward the children, shielded them with his body, letting the beasts charge him. The fire burned, but the children survived. He looked back at Lyra one last time before the trial faded to white when Connor opened his eyes. He was back in the mist. The Spirit Council stood silent, then bowed. You have passed, they said. You gave yourself to protect life. That is the Guardian's greatest truth. A glowing crystal appeared in the air and floated toward him as it touched his chest. The armor changed. New markings appeared, golden flame symbols over his heart and shoulders. The power surged through him, but it was calm, not wild. His heart beat steady, like it was part of something older than time. You are now the bearer of the final flame, the spirits said, and soon. You must face the one who burns without soul. The mist faded, and Connor found himself back outside the temple. Lyra rushed forward and caught him as he stumbled. Connor, she whispered. Did they? He looked at her, eyes glowing. Softly, they said, I'm ready. Euron stepped forward, smiling with pride. You carry the mark of the true guardian now. He said, but so does your enemy. A scout ran up the path. Out of breath, they found Relic. He said quickly. He's merged with something ancient, something darker than any flame we've seen. Connor stood tall, his armor glowing. Like starlight, then the real battle begins now. He said above them, the sky cracked with thunder. Two powers had awakened, and soon they would collide. The sky was not blue anymore. It burned like it had been torn open. Red lightning danced between black clouds, and a strange wind screamed across the mountains. The land itself seemed afraid. And at the edge of the Therixan capital, a shape rose from the earth's tall, twisted, pulsing with red fire. It was not a man anymore. It was Relic, or what he had become. He stood in the middle of the ruins, covered in corrupted armor that moved like shadow and smoke. The power he had taken from the Forbidden Vault was ancient, too old, too angry. Above him, giant, burning symbols circled the sky, written in a language no one dared speak. From the western gate, Connor approached, his armor glowing with a soft, golden flame. Lyra walked beside him, wearing ceremonial armor of her own, marked with the symbol of the Shieldmate behind them. The spirits of the fallen guardians shimmered in the air, silent. Watchful, ready, Relic turned slowly. His eyes no longer orange. Now they were black holes of hatred. You came, boy, he growled, ready to die with your ancestors. Connor stood firm. I'm not here to die, he said. I'm here to end what you started. The ground cracked between them, and the air exploded as both warriors charged. The armor around Connor responded to every thought, forming a sword of pure light. Relic swung a blade of dark flame, and the two powers collided with a sound that shook the mountains for hours. The battle raged. Every step they took left scars on the land. They flew into the sky, crashed through buildings, rolled across stone, bridges and fields of glowing crystal. Connor's body burned with pain, but his heart stayed strong. Lyra fought beside him, blocking attacks meant for others. Keeping the corrupted soldiers away, she moved like lightning, spinning her staff and sending shockwaves across the battlefield. But Relic was no ordinary enemy anymore. He had become a storm, one powered by rage, darkness, and the souls he had stolen. Connor fell once his shoulder cracked. Blood on his lips, Relic raised his blade to finish him. But just as the sword came down, a wall of spirit energy rose from the ground. The past guardians had formed a barrier, their silent vow. Still protecting him, Relic screamed, furious, "You hide behind ghosts." He shouted, "No." Connor whispered as he stood again, "I fight with them." The armor's core began to glow brighter than ever. A deep voice, the first guardian, spoke within his mind. You carry our final hope, if you wish to end. This you must call the final flame. Connor raised both hands, and the sky turned gold. The flame around him burst out like a sun being born. Relic charged, blade ready, but it was too late. The final flame struck, not with fire, but with memory. Every soul Relic had consumed was set free. The armor he wore shattered, and the dark spirit within him screamed as it was pulled into the light. The sky cleared. The black clouds broke apart. The battlefield fell into silence. Relic lay on the ground, his body broken, his power gone. He looked at Connor with weak eyes. I wanted to be more than forgotten, he whispered. You were, Connor replied gently. But you chose the wrong way. Relic closed his eyes, and the wind carried his last breath away. Lyra ran to Connor's side and helped him up. His armor flickered, then faded into a soft silver glow. The battle was over, but something new had begun back in the city. People lit blue fires in the streets. They sang songs that hadn't been heard in centuries. For the first time in 1,000 years, a guardian had fulfilled his duty. Connor stood before the council the next morning. Euron bowed deeply. You brought balance back to a broken world, he said, and you reminded us that even a stranger can carry the soul of a hero. Connor looked at Lyra, who smiled with pride and warmth. I didn't do it alone, he said. No guardian ever does. Later, as he stood on the temple roof, watching the stars return to the sky, the first guardian's voice returned. One last time, the flame will sleep now, but it will always wait, because someday the stars will call again. Connor nodded. I'll be ready, he whispered. And with that, the night grew quiet. Not with fear, but with peace.